Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Miller. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator, and welcome to Womp-rat Wednesday on Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Womp-rat Wednesdays are when we discuss sort of Star Wars in a very encyclopedic manner. In the last few weeks, I have been going through each planet that we see in the Star Wars films, or major planet, in order of the film's release. We have now arrived at Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Now, early in the film, we see places like Wobani and the Ring of Catherine, but we don't see those long enough for me to really talk about them. The first major world we see is the planet Jedha. Now, as I mentioned yesterday and on Monday, this is prequel week. Rogue One is a prequel. Therefore, it does fit in the context of this week's theme. So let us begin talking about Jedha. I am going to try to stick to what's in the movie. There has been some things said in other sources, but as a rule of thumb, I like to stick with what we see and hear and learn in the film. So let's begin. Jedha is a desert kind of world with deserts and mesas. There are some interesting things, like the first time we see Jedha in the film, we see a giant toppled over statue of what looks like a Jedi. This would seem to suggest that Jedha had an important connection to the Jedi. Now we learn that Jedha is a source of kyber crystals. As Jyn Erso mentions in Rogue One, kyber crystals power a Jedi's lightsaber. There is a temple in the Holy City, which seems to be the only major city on Jedha that we see, called the Temple of the Kyber. And the Empire has been digging up and taking away many kyber crystals, basically stripping the planet of Kyber. The blind monk Chirrut Imwe and his bodyguard Baze Malbus are guardians of the wills, according to Cassian Andor. And the guardians of the wills were guardians of the Jedha temple, which is the Temple of the Kyber. But apparently there was nothing left to guard, as the Empire had taken much of the Kyber. So we get that. And I think that's interesting. And I think the Holy City is a beautiful, beautiful city. And I love the design, and I love all these streets. Market streets, people selling their wares, people cooking strange and exotic foods, aliens and humans and people in various strange outfits and robes, like those guys wearing the red robes who look like they're part of some kind of religious order. I love the look of the city. It reminds me a bit of something you might see in The English Patient, or Patton. A sort of a North African city occupied during World War II. It's got that kind of vibe. So I think it's just absolutely brilliant looking from that perspective. Now, also on Jedha, of note is Saw Gerrera and his partisans. This is the character played by Forrest Whitaker in Rogue One. Who, as a side note, we were actually first introduced to on Star Wars The Clone Wars, fighting a similar guerrilla war on its home planet of Andor. But let's stick with sort of what we see in the films. We know that after Jyn Erso's parents were killed, she went with Saw Gerrera and basically joined his cadre. If I'm saying that right. Later, when Jyn was released from prison by the rebels and taken into Yavin 4, they wanted her to establish contact with Saw because they knew that Saw had a connection with Galen Erso. I think I made a mistake earlier when I said both of Jyn's parents were killed. Her mother was killed. I don't think she knew what happened to her dad, other than that he was probably taken. Jyn had always assumed that he didn't care that much about her, that he had left to join the Empire. That hollow transmission he sent to Saw Gerrera demonstrated that his feelings toward Jyn were, he still loved her. And he went away because he had to, not because he chose to leave her. So, Galen Erso was working on Edu, on the Death Star, working on plans for the Death Star, and other details. Other Imperial projects as well. He sent the cargo pilot, Bodhi Rook, with a message to Saw Gerrera. The Rebel Alliance leaders, Mon Mothma and others, knew that there was a connection between Galen Erso and Saw Gerrera. So they wanted to establish a connection with Saw so that they could connect with Galen. They sent Jyn to work that out. I like the look, for one thing, of the hideout where Saw's partisans are. Sort of carved out of the rock, ancient temples and stuff. And I like the look of Saw and his partisans. They have a very sort of insurgent look. I like that. So all in all, I think Jedha is a beautiful planet. And a lot of very interesting things in the story happen there. Then, of course, Tarkin and Director Krennic tested the Death Star's super laser on the holy city of Jedha, which also destroyed Saw's hideout and Saw himself. And then our heroes, of course, escape from Jedha to plan their next move. But it was on Jedha where Jyn learned of the weakness in the Death Star that Galen had built into the reactor. This is, I think, a brilliant move because it explains a little bit of how shooting a torpedo down that hole could blow up the Death Star. So if you ask me, it would have made a little bit more sense for the Death Star to blow up when it first used its super laser. But if that had happened, then you wouldn't have had a story for the original Star Wars film. But I guess it would have been more logical on Galen's part. So it was on Jedha that we learned of the weakness. And we also learned from Galen's transmission that the plans for the Death Star could be found on Scarif, which gives our heroes their mission for the plot of Rogue One. So Jedha is a very interesting world. I find it very interesting visually looking. I find it interesting in terms of the story developments. I like some of the music that plays there. I don't think Michael Giacchino's score to Rogue One gets enough credit. Now, I don't think it's as great as some of the other scores. But there are a couple of pieces, like the piece when we first see Jedha. And some of that just has such a nice flavor to it. That I think that some of the best parts of the score, and maybe it's underappreciated. And also, I like that we really get a sense of what Imperial occupation is like on Jedha. Would I like to live on Jedha? Oh. Well, supposedly it's a cold desert moon. Moon or planet. I'll just say planet. Because it doesn't really define it in the movie. I don't think I'd want to live there. I don't like the cold. If I could stand the cold, I would like to go to Jedha before the Holy City was destroyed to do some archaeological work. Because I think that it sounds like it's got a lot of fascinating history with the Temple of the Kyber. And as we see from some of the designs, it looks like very old. Almost like what you would see in Petra, which is the city, the ancient city where they filmed the final, well, scenes in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That famous city carved into the stone wall. So archaeologically, I think it would be an amazing place to go if I could stand the cold. But I definitely wouldn't want to live there. But visit, sure. And also, if you notice, Jedha does a lot like Jedi. Now, some of the supplemental material suggests that no one really knows which word came first. You know, it's a chicken or the egg problem. But this would seem to suggest that the planet Jedha has a very significant connection to the Jedi, and I think we could actually infer that from the movie. With the fact that you can find lots of kyber crystals there, and also that there seem to be giant statues of Jedi that were once standing. All in all, I think this planet is a great addition to the Star Wars universe. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Brendan Warren. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator, and thank you for tuning in to Womp-rat Wednesday on Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.